Alrighty, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Others may be continuing to join throughout, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we'll go ahead and get started. Just a few housekeeping items here. I do have all the attendees placed on mute at this time, and I do ask that you keep your microphones off unless we open it up for question and answer, just to give a better quality of the presentation to all of the attendees. Also, we love seeing all of your faces, but once we do get into the slide deck, if you could turn your videos off, that would be great. That also just helps with the streaming capabilities. But then again, when we open it up for any questions and answers, please feel free to turn your videos back on. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded so that we can share it with those who are not able to join us today, but still wanted to take part in the discussion. I would like to introduce everyone here to Kathy DeCocq from Savvy Maven. Her and I have been working together for the better part of the last year, and we've done a couple presentations together in the past that went over really well. So she's back by popular demand for our webinar series, and today she's going to be talking about time management. Who doesn't need a little bit more time and help with that during the day, am I right? So Kathy, you've got your slides up on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and let you do your introduction, and then we'll start moving through the presentation here. If any questions do come up, I do have the chat feature open, and I will be monitoring that, so you can feel free to submit things that way as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hillary. And I thought maybe we could start with you, and you could share a little bit about yourself and HiConsulting, since you're so gracious to sponsor this webinar for everybody. Maybe you can give us a quick rundown about you and your company, and then we'll dive into a little bit about me and then get to the material.
Well, of course, yes. So a little bit about me. I'm the president and founder of HiConsulting Services, which I opened in 2017. I have a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology, which is just a fancy way of saying human resources. But I have a lot of experience in operations management, sales, marketing, and HR. I'm very involved locally. I work with Local First Arizona and Phoenix Startup Week. I'm also on the board with AZ Talent Co-op and volunteer with Career Connectors. I actually believe we have a few friends from some of those organizations on the call as well. In my personal life, I love to go hiking, explore the Southwest. I ride a dirt bike, and I live with my husband, niece, and 2 dogs. As Kathy mentioned, this presentation is being brought to you by HiConsulting Services. We are a career services firm based here in Phoenix and believe that you have the power to make your dreams come true. We help you get there with professional career services, including resume writing, LinkedIn profile optimization, interview preparation, cover letter copywriting, mentoring. We are dedicated to our clients and their success. So thank you, Kathy. I'll hand it off to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Hillary. All right, guys. So we'll start with a little bit about me. So I have a background in process improvement and project management. Time management just happens to be one of my all-time favorite things. So I'm glad to be able to talk to you guys today and share a few things about, just kind of some tips and tricks on how to do time management to just get better control of your day. My background is in corporate America, but I actually, a couple of years ago when I started my company, Savvy Maven, I found that, the entrepreneurial space was really what I was passionate about. Helping folks just like you, whether you're working in a corporate environment currently and have entrepreneurial aspirations, or if you're an entrepreneur, you run your own business or maybe a few, that's where my passion lies. And so I wanted to take my skill set and my experience to a group of folks that, really trips my trigger, really lights me up each day. So that's how Savvy Maven got started, and kind of how my professional history kind of built into that. I am married. I've got 2 fur baby dogs, and one or both of them may speak up at some point during this meeting. One of the benefits, perhaps, of working from home in the current environment, but we'll do our best to manage around that should something like that come up. And when I'm not working, I enjoy quite a few things. Probably number 1 on the list is food. And then after that, in no particular order, paddleboarding, archery, hiking, and of course, with COVID, home improvement projects have been front and center So we've been doing quite a bit of work around the house to make the environment in which we're spending all of our time, as nice as possible, as comfortable as possible. So that's a little bit about me. Let's dive then into the content for today. And I want to just kind of level set everybody first and just kind of think about if any of these bullets, or maybe more than one of them, kind of hit home for you as far as, things that you experience on a regular basis. So you probably have big dreams and big goals for yourself. You want to get, maybe you've enrolled in a program like learning about SEO or marketing or some other like coaching program, and you want to get the most out of that program that you've invested your time and money into. Maybe you feel like you just don't have enough time to get everything done that you want to get done. Probably a pretty popular one. You're working long hours and not having a personal life or much of one outside of work. If you feel like you're not in control of your days, if maybe you're procrastinating on tasks that are vital to your goals, and just perhaps have ideas that, just never seem to get off the ground, then, you're in the right place and you are not alone, because nearly everybody that I speak to expresses a pain point along the lines of what I mentioned previously. And kind of to further illustrate it, there have been numerous studies done to kind of showcase the effects of time management in both the academic space as well as in the work environment, and how effective time management can really increase your productivity. So you'll see what we mean about effective time management as we go through here through the presentation. So let's just start out with a definition. I like to level set with, what is it that we're talking about? Because everybody seems to have their own idea for what time management could be. And I like this definition from Mind Tools, where it's working smarter, not harder. You organize and plan your time and divide it up amongst specific activities so that you get more done in less time, even when time is tight and pressures are high. So if you think about that, we're really trying to do the old adage, work smarter, not harder, and focus on your priorities, focus on, when you do have time to work on those things, make sure you're working on the right stuff and not getting perhaps distracted by shiny objects. All right, so now we know what time management is. How do you do time management? Well, that's what you're all here for, and that's what I want to share, at least, some commonly used tools with you guys here today. There's all kinds of activities that you can do to manage your time. There's all different variations of those things. The key here is what is going to work best for you. So remember when I said we're looking for effective time management. Effective means that it works for you. And you'll see as we go through here and kind of when we pull it all together at the end, if it doesn't work, you can change it. Like, there's no rule book. There's nothing that says you have to do things in a prescribed way. It's paying attention to what works best for you, what actually gets the results that you're looking for and feels good doing it. That's what we're talking about when we think about effective time management. So I've listed here the commonly used tools, and I'll go through each of these in some detail once we kind of move forward in the presentation. So we're going to look at trying to estimate how long it's going to take you to work on a task. That's very critical, because if you don't know that, then it's hard to figure out how many tasks you can do in a day. We're going to look at ways to know what you need to do when, so that's calendarizing. We'll look at to-do lists. I'm a big fan of to-do lists. I love writing things down and then being able to cross them off when they're finished. I'm sure I've got a few fellow to-do listers out there who that resonates with. And then we also want to look at prioritization. So that's where I was saying before, we want to make sure that you're working on the right stuff at the right time so that you are knocking those tasks off in the most critical order that's going to be the most beneficial to you. Now, I will say, and Hillary, I'll ask for your help with this because, of course, in presentation mode, I'm not able to see the chat window or, if folks are raising their hand. So what I'll do is when we go through each of these 4 tools, I'll kind of open it up because I do want to hear from you guys. If you've got some techniques along the lines that we're discussing, if you have a specific scenario that you're comfortable sharing in the group here, I'm happy to spend a few minutes just kind of talking through specific situations and get you some immediate relief. So Hillary, if I could ask for your help kind of when we get to the end of the content for each slide, I'll open it up and see if anybody has any commentary, any examples you want to share, or any situations that you might want to talk through. Okay?
You've got it. I'm ready.
All right. Thank you. So let's talk about the first one, which is estimating how much time it's going to take you to work on something. So I'm trying to follow the same format for each of these so that you get a sense for what the topic is, the best application for said topic, and then any of the tips that I've learned along the way that will help you kind of get to your sweet spot sooner rather than later. So task duration estimation, all right, it's just how long it's going to take you to do something. And the best application for it is really any type of task that you need to get done. And that can be in the work environment, that can be in the personal space. You know, if you think about that honey-do list that you have that's probably piling up at your house, you can apply it there. If you've got a list of to-do items for work, you can use it here too. Like either way, the idea is to just start to get accustomed to how long it takes you to do certain things, because that's really the only way to understand how much you can get done in a day, right? So my tips here, and then I'll open it up for some feedback, some examples, some walkthroughs. Use historical data wherever you can. That's going to be your best indicator for how long it takes you to do something, is if you've done it before. And if you've not done it before, well, come up with some kind of reasonable estimate and then double that thing. And that rule of thumb of doubling comes in handy quite a bit, mainly because we're pretty good at underestimating how long it's going to take us to do something. So, like painting a bathroom is probably like, hey, it's a small space. It'll probably take 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops, right? Yeah, it doesn't take that long. It takes at least 2 hours because you have to tape. And then, you're doing all this scooching around to paint everything and moving and scooching and painting. It takes a lot longer than you think, but our brains, for some reason, like to underestimate how long something's going to take. So for starters, just double something, especially if you've never done it before and you don't really have anything to gauge against. That'll give you a reasonable estimate. And then it takes a little bit of the pressure off of you to try to do too many things at once. And then there's some durations that you can set and kind of work it in reverse. So, one of the examples that I have here, but this applies to a lot of different things, is, if you want to read a book a month, let's say, just as a personal goal that you have, well, set 15 minutes aside each day so that you are reading a book. And then you've got at least 15 minutes that you're kind of chunking towards that longer term goal. And maybe you need more than that to read a book a month, but you kind of get the idea. There are things where you can put the limits on it yourself rather than working it until it's done. You just work until the timer kind of goes off, if you will. All right, so let's pause here, and I want to kind of open it up to you guys. And first of all, just check to see whether this is making sense. Like, does the concept of knowing how long it's going to take you to do something resonate with you? And then, assuming so, do you have any examples where you've used this successfully, or do you have any scenarios that you'd like to walk through where it's like, how would I estimate how much time it takes to do da-da-da? Make sense? So Hillary, if you can open it up for us, let's see if we've got any questions or scenarios.
We don't have anything coming in just yet, but I do have we do have one. Josh Lipka says, I use the reasonable estimation and then doubling that every day for my design clients. So he's following your method as well.
Oh, I love it. And I take it in that line of work that it's probably a little bit different, like each client needs something a little bit different. Is that the case?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. So then I like that as a good rule of thumb. And then I think, Josh, you tell us, like, is that working well for you then to kind of use some, it sounds like maybe a mix of historical plus then a little bit of doubling and estimation because each person is a little bit different. Yeah.
He said it's about 65% accurate.
That works. That's better than zero. We will absolutely take it. Excellent.
And then, Nikki joined in as well and said that this is a great technique and that it is really nice when you can finish a little bit earlier and then you can wow your clients because you finished earlier or at least on time.
Oh, that's a really good point, Nikki. Thank you for bringing that up. You always want to under promise and over deliver. I think I got that right, where you give a little bit longer, especially to a client, give an extra day or however, whatever time measurement you're using, give a little extra so that you always can deliver early and wow your clients. I think that's a wonderful tip.
And we have a question from Miriam here. She said, what if I try timing the same task, for example, writing a cover letter, but each one takes a different amount of time? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I've got some questions there, Miriam. So it's, part of me wants to say do an average, but then averages, all the mathematicians in the world just shuddered because averages are not representative of, all of the work, right? So I think you would want to look and be a little bit more granular about it if that's possible. So let's say you've got, and I'm just making some things up here, but hopefully it applies. So maybe you're applying to a certain type of role and that cover letter it's for the public sector, it's for a public sector job. And then maybe there's some other roles that you're applying for that could be private sector, they could be different potentially industries or different level of role. You could look at it that way to see where am I spending, what's the common theme for where I'm spending the shorter amount of time versus the longer amount of time, and see if you can estimate based on the type of cover letter you think you need to do next time, whether it's the short or the long. The other thing you could do then is if it's not easy to identify a pattern there, you could just go with the long one, as your estimate. And then as somebody was saying earlier, come in, early and in this case, wow yourself, I guess, because you're giving yourself some extra time in your day. Does that kind of make sense? You could look at it like what type of cover letter and come up with an estimate for each type, or you could just use the long time for every one of them and finish early every once in a while.
Great advice. Thank you.
Awesome. Very good. Any other scenarios out there that you guys would like to walk through? It's one of my favorite things to do, and Hillary will attest to this. Problem solving on the fly is one of my favorite things. So if you guys have scenarios that you're thinking about, there's no scenario that is too small or too unique to bring up as we're going through this. All right. Well, if things have quieted down in the chat window, Hillary, maybe we'll move to the next topic.
I think that sounds good.
All right, let's do it. So we've got duration estimation down. Now we want to use some type of tool. I call it calendarizing, but we want to use some kind of tool to plan what you'll do when and for how long. So the best application for this, and this I find, especially in my decades in corporate America, I had a lot of meetings. And so I had to be careful and keep track of my time so that I wasn't expected to be in two places at once. But then I also had to carve out time for when, I was doing the work that came from those meetings. Because you never just go to a meeting just to like share ideas and then you're done. There's always action items that come from those. So you've got to set aside time where you can focus on that work, and somebody's not able to see your calendar and try to book you into a meeting. And maybe some of you guys have had this experience before. I certainly had years worth of 8 hours a day of just meetings, and people, it seems kind of maybe mean to say, but people don't think about your time. They only think about theirs. And so you have to protect your own time. So if you guys are in situations where other people, either other team members or external folks like clients, are setting up meetings with you, you've got to have some way of keeping track of that and blocking time so that you are in control of what you're doing and when. There are those folks out there who just love to use their calendar for tracking. I think for every one of those guys I've met 2 folks who hate using a calendar for their tracking, but this is where you can kind of make it work for you, right? Remember, it's effective time management, and effective means what works for you. So it may not be a calendar tool, but if you are somebody like me who's in a bunch of meetings, you have to use a calendar at some point to avoid overlaps and make sure you've got enough time in your day to get the action items done. So here's how calendarizing works and some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. Think about it like, what's all the stuff that you need or want to get done in a day, week, or month? And this can be work or personal. You can think about it on both lines. Use the prior step to figure out how much time roughly you think it takes to do each of the tasks that you've just listed out. And then think about how often do you need to do it to achieve your goal. So let's think about the book example. If you want to read 1 book a month and it takes you 4 hours to read a book, you need to spend 1 hour a week reading. And it can be all at once, or it can be, 4 15-minute increments on 4 different days, like however you want to break it up. But I'm trying to keep the math simple there to just say in a month of 4 weeks and it takes you 4 hours to read a book, break it down 1 hour per week. Thinking about it like working out, you want to work out 30 minutes a day. And so then it would be more of a daily goal, where the book reading example is more of like a weekly one because you're trying to just read 1 book a month. If you think about like work tasks, it's a little bit different, right? Because you probably have something that's due. So if you're working, for a client, you've committed to a delivery date on, let's say, a branding package, or like Joshua, a design package for the client. So you've got a date out in the future that you're working towards, and then you break it up, that deliverable up into smaller chunks, and you figure out, okay, between now and that due date, what all do I need to get done? And how much do I need to work on each week or each day in order to achieve that deadline? And like was said earlier, hedge your bets a little bit, and you make sure that if you committed April 1st, well, let's do May 1st. If you've committed May 1st to your client, then you want your work to be done a few days before that. So you've got time to let it sit. You've got time to maybe do a quick quality control check on it and still hit or exceed. So you deliver early on that May 1st deadline. And then once you kind of have all of that figured out, you want to fill up your calendar with these tasks. Now, one thing that I like to do, so this doesn't work for everybody, so this goes in the category of try it, and if it works, awesome, and if not, don't worry about it. But I like to color code my tasks so that kind of at a glance, my brain knows what to expect that day. So do I have a lot of, head down work that I'm doing for a client? Or do I have a lot of meetings where I need to shower and do my hair and get ready? Like those kinds of things help me visually to say, all right, when do I have to be kind of camera ready? And then I work backwards from there to make sure that I'm ready for that. If it's a day of, just have my head down, like usually Fridays are head down, getting work done days, then I can be in my finest pajamas until whatever o'clock, right? Like it doesn't matter. So I use the color coding to tell me what's coming up, what to expect for the next day. And here's something that doesn't always come into play. A lot of the time management material that I see out there talks only about the work, okay? But you have to allow for breaks. So I put that on my calendar as well. I have a lunch break set up for 45 minutes every day at noon. And what that does is that, first of all, reminds me to have lunch, right? How many times have you just worked right through and then it's like, oh, shoot, it's 3 o'clock. I should probably eat something. So I get a calendar reminder that says, hey, lunch is coming up. Ah, perfect. And then it also helps secure my time because I have clients, I have other folks who have access to my calendar that are booking meetings with me. It shows me as blocked, so nobody can book anything during that time unless they ask me. Now, if they ask me and it's like, yeah, they're East Coast, I need to move it or whatever, like fine. But I scooch that time around so that I still take a lunch. It might be at 11 instead of 12. It might be 1 instead of 12. But then I'm in control of that. I can make the conscious decision to, take the meeting at noon and then move lunch to an earlier or later time, depending on what the rest of the day looks like. I also have thrown in historically breaks to walk my dog. So, back when things were super hectic and all of this started to kind of formulate in my head, like I was not taking the dog for a walk. Well, that's not fair to him. And then I also need to get outside, get a little sunshine and fresh air too. I can't just be in the house working from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. every day. So I put things like that on there. I even put stuff on there like shower. Like, no joke, sometimes you just have to put it down and make sure that you have time carved out to, for some self-care to get yourself ready. If I have to drive someplace, I put drive time on the calendar because there's been a whole bunch of times where I've got to leave here at, let's say, 1 p.m. for an appointment, and somebody will schedule a meeting with me at 1 o'clock because I didn't put it on my calendar. So now I have to take a meeting in the car on the way to something else, like my brain's in 2 or 3 places at once, and it's very hectic. So I've started blocking drive time for those instances where I leave to, let's say, a doctor's appointment or something like that. So I use my calendar quite a bit, as I'm sure you could tell. And it's one of those things, again, where it's like, whether it's electronic, whether it's written, whether it's a mix, it doesn't matter. You have my permission to use whatever works for you in order to keep track of your day, your time, when you need to be where and what you need to be working on. All right, that's a whole ton of stuff. So Hillary, let me turn it back over to you in the chat window to say, does anybody have any questions or scenarios that you would like to run through?
Yes, we do have some coming in. This is a hot topic. Right. So from Nikki, this is a good technique to not get overwhelmed. And we have a bunch of tasks squeezed into a small time frame where you're overwhelmed. I can see how this would manage your own expectations to stay sane and not overcommit as well.
Yes, I love it, Nikki. It's all about staying sane and not trying to do too much. I know that like in the world of like hustle and all that, like you're trying to do as much as you can. But I mean, let's be honest, we burn out after so many hours in a day and getting so many things done. So for me, this is a way to protect my own energy so that I can devote my best self to the task or the person at hand. So that's a great point.
And Kathy, I'm just going to pivot off of that. I do have a question for you for some best practice guidance here.
Yep,
so what is your thoughts about trying to pack too much into a day? You and I have talked before. I'm not a morning person, right? I don't get stuff done before 9 a.m. So I prefer not to schedule any tasks before 9 a.m. because it's just unrealistic I'm going to ever get them done. But how do you feel about setting, true start and stop times for your day overall? And how important is that to using some type of calendar system?
Yeah, I personally, and thank you for that, Hillary, I personally love it to pieces. I call it bookending. So that's one of the joys of owning your own business, right? And one of the draws of becoming an entrepreneur is that you can do whatever you want. It's amazing. And that's why you're here. And then you're like, oh, I've got to get all these things done. Everything becomes uber important. And then you end up burning the candle at both ends. So Hillary, you and I are alike in that I'm not getting anything done before 9 a.m. And I'm the boss and I can do it that way, right? So I set my calendar to where nobody can book anything before 9 a.m. I think I even have it set to 10 a.m. because for me, 9 a.m. is like to be camera ready for a Zoom call is really pushing it for me and, the morning routines that my household has. So I don't even start anything really until 10 o'clock, unless it's an exception for an East Coast client and that's the only time or whatever. And then I prepare myself for that. But for the most part, my day starts at 10. And then I let it run until, somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon with a break for lunch in there. And that's what works best for me. So how I arrive at that is knowing when my energy is the highest, knowing, what my morning routine needs to be in order for it to not feel rushed and chaotic. Because the last thing I want to do is roll up to this desk and be like, oh, okay, I'm here. What do I have to do? Like, I don't want to start my day like that. I don't know that any of us do, right? So I take a leisurely morning and I figure out, okay, and it's trial and error. So it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, ding, it's 10 o'clock. Like, I had to kind of work on that to figure it out. And you'll see that's one of my main tenets. One of my main things that I promote is like, you've got to work on it and just try something, because there's no rules that says whether that has to or not work for you or not. And then as far as the ending day, I just watch my energy and I try not to get to a point where I leave work or close the laptop or whatever leaving work ends up looking like for you. And I've got to have enough energy for the rest of my life. So for my family, right? For other responsibilities that I have, other hobbies that I have, things that make me who I am that are important to me besides work. So it's all a bit of trial and error, but I do feel like, when I talk with clients about kind of getting their time under control, it usually ends up being somewhere between 6 or 7 hours are where the bookends are. And you take, the mornings and you start it as early as you're comfortable starting, to where you don't just fly into work and you're just frazzled when you get there. And then at the end of the day, I watch my energy and I see when I start to just sit there and stare at the screen or write an email for 10 minutes straight, like that's when you're done. And it's time to just move on, close that laptop, save it for another day. So that's kind of how I do it, Hillary, is I just watch my energy level and I try not to do too much, because otherwise I'm not giving my best self to the work. Does that help?
Yes, very much. Thank you. I'll read this last comment for Josh before we move on to the next slide. Okay. Josh says, I'd be dead in the water without calendarizing, mostly used for meetings, but I don't schedule action time after them. You bet I will be doing that from now on. Great tip. And yes, bookending.
Yes, awesome, Josh. Thank you for that. I'll tell you another fun trick that you can try too. So when you start putting time on your calendar to get the work done, I like to do those. I don't know, it kind of depends on your meeting schedule, but like at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, like those kind of, I call them buffer zones. And so it lets you just, first of all, just take a breath from all the meetings. And then secondly, now you can sit there and think about, okay, what's all the stuff that I signed up for in all of these meetings? And then you can start doing your task duration estimation, your to-do list, your prioritizing to figure out when you're going to get all that stuff done. Another thing I like to do is, especially for those of you who have a ton of meetings, is try to put some buffer in between your meetings. So I don't know how many times you guys have had this situation, but it happened to me so many times that I had to create these buffer zones myself. But you get back to back to back to back to back to where you're starting your day and then you go to lunch and all you've done is been in a meeting for 4 hours straight. Well, that doesn't do anybody any good, right? Mentally, physically, any of it, because you haven't had a chance to get up and walk around. You haven't had a chance to use the restroom. You haven't had a chance to get a drink of water, right? Like these are all things that you need in order to bring your best self to the work. And yet, if you sit there for 4 hours at a clip, you're actually taking away from your energy and from your productivity, your effectiveness. So I try to throw buffers in there. And if I start getting folks that are like, hey, I need to meet at 10 a.m. and I've already got 2 meetings before that end at 10, then I'm going to tell them, let's do 10:30. And then I can take 30 minutes and I block that time so I can go walk around, I can get a drink, do what I need to do. But at least I've put some space in there so that I'm not just meeting. And now it's suddenly 3 p.m. and you haven't gotten up, you're probably still in your jammies, right? So that's another tip, Josh, that you can try, and the rest of you guys too, just to make sure that your day just isn't slammed and solid with meetings and work. Okay. Yeah, calendarizing is definitely a game changer. So, and again, whatever works best for you, right? So think about that in terms of the effectiveness. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about one of my favorite things, which is a to-do list. So what it is, I mean, obviously, but it's a list of things that you need to accomplish in some amount of time. And don't think that that time has to be defined, right? Like it's just a list of stuff that you have to get done. Your best application for this, and there's a lot of them. So if you have a lot to do, you probably need a to-do list, especially if you feel like you're going to lose those things if you don't write them down. If you're like me, you like the feeling of crossing something off your list. There's actually science around writing things down, frees up your brain space. It's like a relief that you don't have to remember to buy peanut butter at the grocery because you wrote it down. And now that frees up that energy and that focus for more pressing activities. So to-do lists can be written or electronic or both. And you have to pick what works best for you. And again, we'll see at the end here, but what works best for you equals what you actually use. So if you're using the thing, it's working. If you're not using it, it is not working and you need to try something else. One of these lifesavers here is creating a list for the next day's to do the night before. So I will sit here and I will act, 4:30, 4:35, whatever it is, like you're like, whoo, it's the end of the workday. Whoo, what a day. I take 5 more minutes and I write down all the stuff that needs to get done tomorrow. What does that do? It does a couple of things. First of all those action items are all fresh in your brain. So you don't have to sit there and go, oh, what was it that I was supposed to do after that meeting with Carl? Because if you do it tomorrow, right? If you write it down tomorrow, then that's what you're going to go through is you're going to be thinking like, what do I have to do? I can't remember. It's going to take you more time, which I know sounds a little bit like ticky-tack, right? Like you're saving yourself 30 seconds, but you'll see, as you start practicing some of these techniques, 30 seconds, it's a big deal. And you need to watch out for that stuff. The other thing that it does is it lets your brain completely let go of all the stuff that you were working on that day. Because remember what I just said about the science behind writing things down lets your brain relax. That's exactly what's happening. So then you don't wake up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. like, shing, I got to do this for whoever tomorrow. Like that doesn't happen because you wrote it down. It's already on your Post-it note or your to-do list or your whiteboard or whatever it is. And then one final tip is find a way to add to your to-do list when you're on the go. So when you're not at your fill in the blank solution, right? You're not at your laptop, you're not at your whiteboard, you don't have your trusty notebook with you. Like you never know when you're going to get a new task that needs to go on the list. So find a way to capture it even though you're not there at your to-do list. So I use my phone. I use like, hey Siri, or, any voice command, just real quick, because it always happens, right? You're in the car and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get peanut butter at the grocery. Hey Siri, put peanut butter on the grocery list or whatever it is. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So you can always sit down at the end of your day when you're planning tomorrow and like gather in all the stuff from all the places of the to-do list, whether it's on your phone or whatever, and then put them on your physical to-do list at that point. But just don't lose them, those action items, just because you're not there at your desk or at your notebook. All right, Hillary, let's open it up and see if anybody has any comments or any situations to walk through for like how to just stay on top of that to-do list.
Yes, we did have one come in from Nikki, who says that she uses a Google Doc for her work to-do list so that she can always access an updated version in the cloud on any device, including her smartphone.
Love it. Yeah, the cloud devices and those solutions are just magical. like, I don't know how else to say it. They're really, really handy. And I don't know if any of you guys are not familiar with them, but if you've got a Google account or a Gmail email account, then you can do Google Drive, and you can share these documents up into the cloud. And just like Nikki said, you can add to it on your phone. Like, it's super simple, and it's handy. Thank you for that, Nikki.
I think that's all we have coming in for this one, so we can jump over to the next slide.
Awesome. All right, to-do lists well in hand. Love it. All right, the last one is prioritization. So we've talked about estimating how long something's going to take you, putting it on your calendar or tool of choice where you're, kind of keeping track of your workday to make sure you're not overlapping or leaving enough time to get work done. We've got a to-do list. Now, the final kind of layer to this first set of tools is prioritization. So it's a way to organize all of your tasks in terms of their relative importance. And the best application for this is if you have a lot of work to do, if your to-do list is constantly growing, it's not shrinking, or one of the symptoms is that you are working long hours, then those to me are all signals where you need to add some prioritization on top of what you're already doing to manage your tasks. So the hard part is building the discipline to work on the high priority items, because how satisfying is it to go in and check your email and respond to everybody first thing in the morning? Like, it feels great, right? Unfortunately, it's just not that productive. And you've got other things, I guarantee it, you have other things on your to-do list that are of higher importance than answering some of those quick question emails or, whatever you guys get that comes in. It's tough to build in the discipline. So what I've done is I give myself a couple of freebies, like a couple of softballs that I know I can just hit right out of the park. Then I feel like, ooh, I am productive. I'm on a roll. I'm nailing stuff. Now let's tackle those high priority items. Now, what I didn't say was I spent 4 hours a day working on the low priority items. I do 1 or 2 just to get the ball rolling. And now I'm feeling good. So now let's tackle those higher priority things. I've just kind of contradicted my second bullet here, but whatever, there's no rules. So you have to resist the temptation to work on the quick stuff. It seems productive, but the quick things are usually not the things that are moving your business forward in a monumental way. So if you think about it in those terms, it's like you've got to focus on what's going to move your business and what's going to achieve that big goal that you're working on, what's going to move you closer to finishing that big project you've been assigned. Like, the quick stuff is easy, but where you'll differentiate yourself and you'll feel better in the long run and get way more done in the long run is by focusing on the big dogs. Ask people that bring you work. And I don't even need to do a show of hands of like who gets work assigned to them, right? Like, it's everybody, whether it's from a client or a spouse or, a boss, like whatever, everybody gets work assigned. So you need to ask whoever's bringing you that work, when do you need that by? Now, it sounds like such a simple question, right? And it is, but here's the dynamic. Here's what happens when you ask that question. You've just flipped the script and you have asked that person to tell you their thought process behind the importance of that work. How many times do you think somebody has thought that through before they bring it to you? It's not a lot, okay? Nobody knows. Try it. Try it on an easy place, like, if your spouse, your significant other is like, hey, can you go fix the leaky faucet? Sure. When would you like me to get that done? Oh. And then they're like, I don't know. And it's like a knee-jerk reaction. And not everybody does this, but it's like, I need this thing done, bring it over to Josh, let's get it done. I need that done, bring it over to Hillary, I'll have her, get to work on that. But they don't think about when they need it done or why they need it done that quickly. So what you'll see happening is they'll say, I don't know, when can you get it done? Ball's back in your court now to say, use your to-do list, use your calendar to see when you got some open time to say, well, I could get it done by next Friday. Hedge your bets, always tell them longer, right? Like what Nikki, or I think it was Nikki was saying earlier, hedge your bets, give them an extra day or whatever. And then they'll be like, yeah, that'll work. And if it doesn't work, then they'll say, could you do it by Wednesday? And then you kind of go through a bit of negotiation. But the punchline is, no one thinks about when they actually need the work done. They bring it to you and they put the responsibility on you to figure that out. And what do you do? Because you are a caring, high work ethic person, you're going to say, man, that is urgent. I better get it done right now, and then drop everything and do it. They don't need it that soon. And you've given an artificial priority to it. Just to have a little fun with this one. I mean, pick the scenario, right? If the CEO or somebody comes to you and says, hey, get this done, well, all right, just do it. But you can still ask in a professional way, tell me, when you needed that by, so I can work towards that. It's a fair question to ask. And if they can't answer it, you give them an answer and let them kind of think on whether that's going to work for them. And then one of my favorite resources of all time is a book called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And it has 20-something tips for how you can do prioritization. So for every person that's here on the phone, there's probably a different way of doing prioritizing that works best for you. So if you want some ideas on how to, do prioritization and read different techniques and find one to try and see if it works, I recommend Eat That Frog. It's like $8 or $10 on Amazon. Like, it's just not super expensive, and it will change your life. I guarantee it. All right, that's prioritization. It's probably the biggest, meatiest of the topics to talk through, because we just don't tend to think in terms of priority. We tend to think in terms of first in, first out, which means whoever gave you the work in that order is when you're going to get it done. That's just kind of our default nature. But this is a game changer and really helps you move your business forward and still hit all of your client or boss or spouse commitments. Hillary, what's coming in on the chat?
Awesome. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite topics as well. We've got about 12 minutes left here, so we can spend a little bit of time discussing this one. So Nikki chimed in and said that she has also read Eat That Frog and completely agrees. It was a game changer for her. She's been eating her frog ever since, and it really makes each day go faster and feel more confident and in control of the workday.
Oh, I love that, Nikki. It's so hard to not look at the shiny objects and not do all of the quick low-hanging fruit, the low-hanging tasks. But yeah, the focusing on your frog. So frog is, that very big, nasty, ugly, long-term thing that you need to do to move your business forward, complete that project, whatever it is, right? So when we say frog, it's like, you think about, would I want to eat a frog? No. But you have to, right? You have to get that big thing done. So how do you approach it? Well, it's in the order of priority, and you focus on that big stuff that's going to move you forward. Awesome.
We had a question come in from Josh. The question is, any tips for prioritizing client work versus business work? I find myself spending all of my time on clients, and then by the time I can work on my own business, I'm spent and no longer want to sit at the computer any longer.
Oh man, yeah, I can relate. So this is one, Josh, where you'll probably have to go a week and just kind of, and you could do it maybe retroactively, because I think you said you're using your calendar earlier. So you could look at last week or last month and kind of see what's happening as far as the client work versus your own. And, you know, running out of steam, I think for me is symptomatic of a lot of different things. And it's like what it actually is for you, you'll probably have to do a little bit of investigation on. But I would encourage you to think about, when is your energy the highest during the day? Is it in the morning? Is it kind of mid-morning, lunch, afternoon, evening? Like, think about that for you. And all of you guys here today, you can do the same thought process. And you want to work on the things that are the most difficult, the most brain intensive, probably the ones you don't want to work on as much, like, you know, the frogs, if you will, when you have your highest level of energy. So Josh, if there's a way for you to organize your day that lets you work on your own business when you have higher levels of energy, I think that's one place to start. If that just doesn't map out, let's say, you know, your highest level of energy happens during your kind of core working hours with clients, you know, there's other ways to do it. Like you may just have to take a break and go do something that's recharging for yourself after you're done working with your clients, and then set aside a time every day. And here's the other thing too, as I say that, it doesn't have to be every day. So it kind of depends on what it is that you're working on. But, you know, if every day from 7 to 8 p.m. is work on my own business time, make sure you have enough energy so that when you show up at 7, that you are jazzed about working on it, and then celebrate at 8 o'clock when you're done, because you've spent an hour working on it and moving your business that much further forward. Now, I will say, one of the things that I've noticed about myself, and this may apply to you guys as well, but there's stuff that you need to do for your business, and I just don't want to do them. Like social media, you know, it's one of those things that needs to be done, but it's just not my favorite thing. And so I started telling myself, you know what? Let's try to make this as easy as possible. Let's do social media for 15 minutes a day to just do a post for the next day and be done and move on. Well, guess what happened? I just didn't do it, because every day for 15 minutes, I'm going to torture myself doing something that I don't want to do. Rather, I'll do anything else. I'll clean the bathroom. I'll do anything, right? So then what worked better for me in that circumstance, and here, Josh, is one where it might work better for you potentially too, is every other week, I just set aside an hour to an hour and a half and just drag myself through getting social media done once every 2 weeks, instead of like the Chinese water torture where you're just dripping water and annoying every day. I just did once every 2 weeks, and that seemed to help. So I don't know, Josh, if that's resonating with you, or if, you know, I'm available to talk offline if you guys want to kind of dive into something further. I'm happy to help, but there's, you know, a couple different ways to attack it.
Yes, Josh says, set aside time, show up, get jazzed, celebrate. Got it.
Deal.
So he's got the
I
message.
love that.
The one thing I will add to that too is, you know, I work with a lot of people that are starting their own businesses. And one of the things that we start to struggle with, especially as soon as we start getting those first few clients, is that we start making money. And so we immediately put the emphasis and the priority and the importance on where those dollars are coming from. But we have to remember that the business, we are what makes the business go. So spending time on your business is equally important to bringing in those dollars. And so setting aside time is crucial for making your business succeed and flourish. And then also having an accountability partner. Find another entrepreneur, somebody who is either farther along in their business or maybe is in a completely different industry where you guys can truly hold yourselves accountable. Just a hint, you can make lots of friends on this call with people that are entrepreneurs and get that accountability for yourself so that you continue to work on your business and have somebody hold you accountable for doing it too. It will help you get through some of those tasks that you don't want to do on your business, like the social media.
Yeah, I think those are great points.
We had a comment here from Miriam. I've heard the tip about knowing when your highest level of energy throughout the day. Somehow I can't find my own pattern. Each day I'm productive at different times. Are there any tips?
My immediate reaction to that, Miriam, is, one size does not fit all. And there, you could have some like seasonal or cyclic energy based on what day of the week it is. I mean, think about, for each of you, kind of think about, okay, what's your level of energy on Monday? Yeah, right? Like not very high. Tuesday, you're starting to pick up steam. Wednesday, you're cranking. Thursday, oh, it's almost Friday. So let's take it a little easy. And then Friday, you're like, thank goodness, right? So I think it's not at all uncommon to have days of the week where your energy is occurring at a different time. I think what's important, Miriam, is that you're paying attention to it. And you want to use it to your advantage. The knowledge is power in that case. So knowing that your Mondays are and your Fridays are but your Wednesdays are jazzy like throughout the day or whatever it is for you, that's where the power is. Because now you can try to work your schedule around the high energy and the low energy stuff. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, we're at 126. So let's move to the next slide here.
Perfect timing. Let's put it all together. So like I've been saying, combine tools to work best for your style. Definitely don't try too much at once. So if you've not been doing any of the 4 things that we previously talked about, pick one that really sounded like it would make the most difference to you. Pick one and implement one thing about that tomorrow. Like these are all things that you could sit there and think about and implement something different as quickly as tomorrow's working day, right? So pick one thing. And then once you pick that thing, you've got to stick with it, good, bad, or ugly, stick with it for 1 week to at least practice, because all these things that you're going to be trying, they're all new to you. So they're not going to feel comfortable. So you're going to be like, I don't want to do them. And then you'll just revert back to old habits. Well, that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to break those old habits and get you some new healthy habits to practice. So, don't go cold turkey and just rearrange everything starting tomorrow. Pick something that resonated with you and try that starting tomorrow for a week. And then take note of what works and what doesn't. So like how Miriam was saying, her energy is different at every day of the week, it's at a different point. Cool, now you know, and you can use that to your advantage and then adjust as needed. So as you find things are working for you, only once you feel comfortable and successful, then add another thing. So back to tenet number 2, don't try too much at once. Build a habit, get it solid, then put in another thing. I know it sounds slow, but I guarantee you, you will be way better off by trying to think about it like a diet. You can't eliminate everything all at once. How long is that going to last? You're going to be miserable, and it's going to last you for maybe 2 weeks, right? And then you're just going to be like binge eating Krispy Kremes and everything you can get your hands on. We don't want to do that. We want to just eliminate bread. And then next week, eliminate bread and something else so that you build up. And there's no harm in something not working for you. You are not defective, like it just doesn't work for you, and that's totally fine. So here's how you know it's working, is when you start using things every day. That's really the key indicator. And as a result of that, you're going to hit deadlines, feel accomplished in your workday at a reasonable time, and then have time for the other important stuff like your own personal goals, hobbies, family, and friends. So that's all from me. There'll be all these goodies will be in the post conversation email that Hillary or I send out, but here's how you can get a hold of either of us should you want to continue the conversation. But I could talk forever on time management. It is one of my favorite things on the planet, and it's one of the most impactful things that you can focus on in your own life, be it work or personal or both. So thank you guys so much for your time and your interaction, your engagement. It's been excellent. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you all learned something and enjoyed having the conversation with us. Thank you so much for Kathy for hosting another awesome workshop for HiConsulting Services. Please do take the time to check out Savvy Maven, hook up a phone call with her. She's got a lot of great advice, and her and I both love to meet new people. So
Absolutely.
certainly inviting any of you to turn on your cameras, open up your microphones. I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes here and say hello to everyone. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, and I can hang out too. I don't have anything. See, I built myself a buffer so I can hang out.
Rachel, how are you?
Hey, I just want to say hi, Hillary. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good, thanks.
It's been a long time. I think it's been over a year since we talked.
It's been over a year since I've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah. Are you still doing Startup Week this year?
I'm not doing Startup Week this year. I was on the team. Kate's running it this year, and it's a really small team, kind of like the year that you were on it. But just because it's virtual, I was on programming, and then I had to step back because I had some family issues going on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see how that goes with the virtual.
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Hello.
Miss your face.
How are you? Miss you too. Miss you bunches. Hey, thanks for the great topic today. Just thought I'd pop in and learn some new references.
Absolutely. Thanks for participating in the chat and sharing your examples and all that good stuff. Makes for way more fun, engaging interaction for me too. So thank you for that. I love being challenged on the fly. And I also like, when these techniques have worked for people, like I like hearing that too, because that means, you're that much closer to a good, like natural work-life balance. So that's excellent.
For sure.
For sure. Yep. If you want to chat further, like if, especially Josh, for you, where you've got, the clients, and then also you're working on your business too. Like if you want to chat further, feel free to reach out. You can find me anywhere. And I'm happy to chat, because like I said, this is fun for me to, get in and problem solve. But the joy that I get is when you have success and you feel better and are doing better in your work. So I'm happy to chat offline if you'd like.
For sure. I mentioned a LinkedIn request. So
me too. I'm in the same.
Excellent. Go for it. Love it.
Yeah, Rachel and Kathy, you guys definitely have similar backgrounds. So
I was just going to mention that. I read your profile, Kathy. I'm like, it's like looking in the mirror.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely connect offline. Like Hillary was saying, we're both big fans of networking and just getting to know people. So happy to chat, if for nothing else, than to just, get to know one another outside of this forum.
Absolutely. I love that. I feel like the last year I haven't done any networking. I haven't met any new people. It's just been me alone in my house, and it's frustrating, and I'm ready to get back to actually talking to people again.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Awesome. All right,
pleasure meeting
guys.
everybody. I'm out.
all right.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks for
Josh.
joining us.
Bye, Rachel. Thank you.
Bye.
I don't know if we still have Marissa or.
Yeah, I'm going to just move her out here to the lobby. All right, and let me stop the recording here.